Weird history facts. In 1961, the son of U.S. Vice President Nelson Rockefeller went missing during an expedition in Papua New Guinea. Although he was declared legally dead in 1964 since his body was never recovered, some say this is him as part of a cannibalistic tribe in 1969. Up until 1974, it was illegal to appear in public in the city of Chicago if you were ugly. Each offense was subject to a $1 fine, which would be $20 today. Years before the introduction of colored photographs, a chemist and photographer from Russia created the most basic version of one. He combined 3 regular black and white photos, each through a filter of red, green, and blue. He then merged them to create a beautiful image with color. This image taken by him is over 100 years old. Here are some wild facts that I bet you didn't learn in history class. The first known photograph of a person was taken in 1838. It only happened because a man and his shoe shiner were the only people still enough on a busy street to show up in the 10-minute exposure. In 1937, 2 women wore shorts out in public for the first time. They drew a massive amount of male attention and even caused a car accident. The Great Pyramid of Giza was the tallest building in the world for nearly 4,000 years until the Lincoln Cathedral was built in 1311. When trains were first introduced in the US, women were afraid to ride in them. This is because many people believe that women's bodies were not designed to go 50 miles an hour, and that their uteruses would fly out of their bodies if they were accelerated to that speed. Hidden behind Mount Rushmore is a secret vault that holds important information about the United States and its history. The room is not accessible to the public, but is otherwise left as a record for people thousands of years from now who may wonder how and why Mount Rushmore was carved. Many believe that the vault stores classified documents on suspicious topics such as Area 51. This is a photo from 1955 of a woman being ticketed for wearing a bikini on a public beach in Italy. Dated to 1504, this carved ostrich egg is the oldest known depiction of the New World. The globe shows North America as an unnamed group of scattered islands. There are also depictions of ships, monsters, and 71 named places. It even contains the sentence Hic sunt dracones, which translates to Here lies dragons. Before the invention of ultrasound, parents often had no idea what they were getting. Accordingly, this photo from 1946 shows a man passing out with excitement after finding out that his wife just had triplets. These are what the marble steps look like in the Leaning Tower of Pisa after 500 years of people walking on them. A lot of old movie theaters had cry rooms where you could bring your children to if they were becoming too disruptive. This way you could still enjoy the movie without disrupting other moviegoers. In 1913, a 12-year-old black girl named Sarah Rector was given land unsuitable for farming. But it turned out to be rich with oil and she became a millionaire overnight. She was known as the richest colored girl in the world, and Oklahoma legislation made an effort to have her legally declared white. People originally erased pencil mistakes using bread. That was until 1770 when Edward Nain accidentally picked up a piece of rubber instead of bread and found it to be very effective. This prompted him to sell rubber erasers, which were eventually developed into the ones we know today. Erasers exist to fix mistakes and were invented because of one. This is what the headquarters of Mussolini's Italian fascist party looked like in 1934. In the 1950s, atomic bomb tests were a big tourist attraction in Las Vegas. They advertised detonation times and the best viewing spots to see the bombs explode from 65 miles away. It's estimated that out of all the species that have ever lived on Earth, only a fraction of 1% have been fossilized. This means that more than 99% of the history of life will be forever unknown. Morbid facts. 8,500 feet up the slope of Mount Everest, a creepy marker serves as a guide for climbers. Known as the Green Boots, everyone approaching the summit from the north side must pass by Suang Paljor's body. It's seen as a milestone because it's an indication of just how close one is to the top of the mountain. A 17-year-old boy from Mexico City died after his girlfriend gave him a hickey. The suction resulted in a blood clot that traveled to the brain, eventually causing a stroke. In 2003, David and Tina Watson were scuba diving on their honeymoon in the Great Barrier Reef. When currents became too rough, David, an experienced diver, swam to the surface while his wife struggled in panic. This photo captures Tina lying helplessly on the sea floor in her final moments before drowning. Here are some morbid facts that you didn't know about 9/11. In 1983, professional climber Dan Goodwin illegally climbed the North Tower of the World Trade Center. He said he was trying to call attention to the inability to rescue trapped occupants of the upper levels of skyscrapers. Out of the 343 firefighters that perished on 9/11, Daniel Sir was the first. He died when a woman who jumped from one of the towers landed on him. Only one non-military plane was allowed to fly after all commercial flights were forced to land. It was delivering antivenom to a snake handler in Florida who was bitten by the extremely venomous taipan snake. The only off-duty NYPD officer who was killed in 9/11 had signed his retirement papers that morning. But instead of leaving his badge, John William Perry decided to pick it up one last time. After donating blood for the first time, a 21-year-old Canadian woman has lost the ability to move her right arm. The nurse accidentally drew blood from an artery instead of a vein, causing damage that was permanent. During his reign, Genghis Khan killed so many people that it was actually good for the environment. The 40 million or so deaths he was responsible for dropped the Earth's carbon levels by an estimated 700 million tons. Morgan Freeman says he always wears his earrings because they're worth just enough to pay for a coffin if he happened to die in a strange place. Back in the 1500s, doctors thought that cutting open infants' gums would encourage their teeth to grow. Unfortunately, many of these children ended up dying due to severe mouth infections. In 1985, a black bear was found dead due to a cocaine overdose in a forest in Georgia. The bear had eaten 76 pounds of cocaine out of a duffel bag that fell from the plane of a drug smuggler. Shortly before dying, he was probably the most dangerous apex predator on the planet. This photo of a kidney stone under an electron microscope shows you why they're so painful. Bruce Lee's son Brandon was accidentally killed on the set of The Crow when he was only 28 years old. A prop gun was loaded improperly, causing dummy bullets to fire at him with the same force as live ammunition. In 2014, Harvard University discovered that 2 books in their library were bound using human skin. One of the books is called Destinies of the Soul. In the book, the author wrote a note that said, "A book about the human soul deserved to have a human covering." In 2008, 23-year-old Rachel Hoffman was arrested for possession of marijuana and was facing 4 years in prison. Police told her that the only way to get out of the prison time was to become a confidential informant. She agreed, and her first undercover drug purchase would have been one of the biggest in Florida history. Police told her to buy 1,500 pills as well as a gun from some drug dealers. But the dealers found a wire in her purse and she was murdered with the gun that she was buying. Before World War II, Janusz Korczak ran an orphanage in Warsaw, Poland. During the Holocaust, Nazi soldiers came to his orphanage to take all 192 children to an extermination camp. Korczak was offered his freedom but refused to abandon the children. Instead, he boarded the train with them and was never seen nor heard from again. If Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin got stuck on the moon, the official policy was to cut off communication and let them slowly suffocate in silence. President Nixon even had a speech prepared in case this happened. The speech read, quote, "Fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace." Actor Bela Lugosi famously played Count Dracula in the 1931 film. As per his request, he was dressed in vampire clothing during his open casket funeral in 1956. In 2009, a Russian man named Artyom Sidorkin went to the doctors suspecting something wrong with his lungs. Initially, doctors thought they were dealing with a tumor, but it ended up being something they had never seen before. It turned out that years ago he inhaled the seed of a fir tree and it started growing inside of him. Pigs have been known to feast on just about anything. There are even stories of pigs breaking into farmhouses and eating newborn babies. The ship that inspired the story of Moby Dick was named the Essex. After being shipwrecked by a sperm whale, the crew avoided stepping foot on surrounding islands out of fear of cannibals. But because of this bypass, the men soon ran out of food and were forced to eat each other for survival. When Teddy Roosevelt was 25, his wife and his mother both died on Valentine's Day just hours apart from each other. For his diary entry that day, he drew a large black X and wrote, "The light has gone out of my life." When some whales get old, they no longer have the strength to swim for long distances. So if they swim too deep, they might not have enough strength to reach the surface for air and eventually suffocate to death. Throughout your life, you're more likely to meet a future murderer than you are to have a lasting marriage. In 2010, a homeless man named Hugo saved a woman from a knife attack in New York City. He was stabbed while trying to help, but still chased the attacker before collapsing from his wounds. Security cams captured more than 20 people walking past and staring at him, but no one offered to help. He was found dead on the sidewalk more than an hour later. You should never shine a flashlight on a newborn sea turtle. If the flash is too long, the turtle will start crawling around in circles known as the Ring of Death. This means the turtle's eyesight has been permanently damaged due to mistaking your light for the moon that guides it to the sea. By doing this, you are basically sentencing the turtle to death right after its birth. The first chainsaw was invented by two Scottish doctors in the year 1780. It was originally used to help open up the pelvis during childbirth. Frank Sinatra died on May 14, 1998, the same night as the series finale of Seinfeld. His ambulance made it to the hospital in record time due to there being no traffic since everyone was home watching the show. About 1 in 50 people is walking around with a brain aneurysm that just hasn't ruptured yet. This means there's a chance you can instantly die from a headache without any prior symptoms. The astronauts on the Challenger most likely didn't die immediately from the explosion. They spent the last 3 minutes of their lives plummeting to Earth at 200 miles an hour. In 2015, the Department of Homeland Security conducted a test on the TSA at dozens of airports. A group of agents posing as passengers snuck various weapons through airport security. The TSA ended up failing to detect 95% of the weapons that went through the scanning system. George Washington died when his doctors were trying to cure his sore throat. They were using a process called bloodletting, which involved draining a patient's blood until their illness was cured. He lost nearly half his blood before they stopped the treatment, and he died just a few hours later. According to the FBI, if you're murdered in the US, there's only about a 40% chance that your murderer will be found and punished. When penguins can't find love, they often waddle off to die alone. An Iranian man named Amu Haji is known as the world's dirtiest man. The 80-year-old man hasn't showered in 65 years and claims that cleanliness makes man sick. He has survived off of eating rotten animal carcasses and smokes feces out of a pipe. He also lives in complete isolation, and yes, ladies, he's single. Weird crime facts. In 2015, a woman from Florida was being held hostage by her boyfriend, but luckily she convinced him to let her order a pizza using the Pizza Hut app. In the space for special requests, she wrote, "Please help, get 911 to me." Police soon arrived at the location and the abusive boyfriend was arrested. When he was 17 years old, Ozzy Osbourne was arrested for stealing women's underwear. But his father refused to pay the fine and Ozzy spent 6 weeks in jail. He later called it one of the best lessons of his life. Two thieves once broke into a man's home in England and stole his laptop. But in his files, they found some serious child abuse material and brought the laptop to police. The pedophile got 3 years in jail and the burglars served 12 months of community service. Alexander Litvinenko was a former Russian spy who solved his own murder case. He was poisoned with a cup of tea in a London hotel and was quickly hospitalized. Working with Scottish detectives as he lay dying, he managed to trace the lethal substance to a former comrade in the Russian Secret Service. Serial killer and cannibal Richard Chase only attacked victims who had their doors unlocked. He took locked doors as a sign that he wasn't welcome, but unlocked doors were an invitation to come inside. Troy Leon Gregg was a death row inmate in Georgia who escaped the night before his execution. But that same night, he ended up being killed in a bar fight. Donald Harvey was a nurse and serial killer who killed 37 of his patients with cyanide. He was only caught when one of his victims' coroners had the rare genetic ability to smell cyanide. For a group of kids in London, England, a day of hunting for Easter eggs quickly turned into a thrilling hunt for burglars. A break-in at a nearby building brought a dramatic police helicopter chase right to them. With a chopper overhead and two men suddenly running through the field, the children soon realized they were witnessing a police pursuit. So they dropped to the ground and laid in an arrow formation to direct authorities in the right direction. Woody Harrelson's father, Charles, was a professional hitman who once assassinated a federal judge. In 1983, a man confessed to the murder of his wife after a female skull was found in a peat bog near his home. He was convicted of her 1961 murder based on this confession. But it turned out that the skull actually belonged to a woman who had died nearly 1800 years earlier. The man was convicted anyway.